Hey, do y'all like a good story? Yeah. Well, this is a story that Jade and I wrote together. It's called Uncle Sam, A Horse's Tale. It is a good story because it's a story about horses and it's about Louisiana. So look at it. Now when Jade did it, so she put these pictures right here, and you got horses and army tanks and signs. And, well, let's get to the story and tell you about it. First of all, y'all gonna like this. Look at there.
That's name.
Yeah, that's the name of my grandchildren, and then Alexis, Jade's niece. Okay, let's get to the story. Now, this is a story of a horse. I'm gonna get down here where I can talk to you. He wasn't just any horse. He was a fine cavalry horse, and his name was Uncle Sam. What was his name? Uncle Sam, yes sir. And it's a story about him coming to Louisiana. So let's see what happens. Now Uncle Sam was a special kind of horse. He was a cavalry horse, which meant he was in the army. Do you realize you used to have horses in the army? What's his name now? The horse? Uncle Sam. And he got his name from the fact that branded on his rump was U.S., which stood for Uncle Sam. And he lived way over in Texas at a place called Fort Bliss. Fort Bliss was where the first cavalry was, and Uncle Sam was a horse there. Now his best friend was a soldier named Sergeant Ed. Say his name with me. Sergeant Ed, yes sir. And Sergeant Ed had ridden Uncle Sam for about 7 years, and they were good friends. And listen to what Sergeant Ed said about it. He said, "Sam, you are the best horse I've ever had in all my years in the Army." You know what? That made Uncle Sam very, very proud. He'd like to hear that. Did you know that horses can understand what people say sometimes? You may not know that, but in this book it's true for sure, isn't it, Jay? Yes. Good. There you go. Well, now, Uncle Sam had heard about Louisiana, where we live at. Here's what he'd heard. 2 of his great-grandpas had been to Louisiana in a war. They were cavalry horses. In fact, everyone in Sam's family had been a cavalry horse. And his great-grandpas had told him about coming to Louisiana in a battle called the Civil War. And one of his grandpas was right here with the American side, or we call them the Yankees down here. And over here, another grandpa was with the rebel side, and they fought against each other at a place in Louisiana called Pleasant Hill.
I guess the bad guys.
Well, I don't know if there's bad guys and good guys. They're all Americans right here. We won't get into that. People still fighting about that 150 years later. Turn the page, Jay, real quick. Anyway, one day, Sergeant Ed went and he told Sam, said, "Sam, guess where we're going? We're going to Louisiana. We're going over there to practice war. And we're going with all our horses." And he said, "But I want to tell you about Louisiana. Listen to this." He said, "They got mosquitoes as big as a buzzard. And they got dust thick enough to choke a grown mule. And the mud, when it rains, it's so deep it'll drown a calf." And Sam snorted. He said, "Huh, I've never seen anything that could stop me. I'm a brave cavalry horse." So they got on trains. This is Jade's favorite picture, isn't it? Got on a train, all the horses and all the soldiers and their saddles and all their gear, and they came to Louisiana in 1941, 70 years ago, to be part of what was called the Louisiana Maneuvers. Let's see what happened when they got here. Now Sam had heard from his grandpas about when they were here. Here's what his grandpa had said. "There's a lot of big, tall trees. Look up in the sky up here, Luke. Look up there. There's tall trees." He said there's tall trees everywhere in Louisiana. But look what happened. When Sam and Uncle Sam got here, where were the trees?
Cut.
They'd been cut down. They were gone. There was nothing but stumps. Some were growing right there, but there was nothing but stumps and sawdust. And he was so disappointed when he got here. Well, the next day, he met one of my favorite people in the book. He met a mule named John Henry. Say his name with me. John Henry. Now, John Henry, let me see if I explain it. Your mamas and daddies will explain a lot more to you when you get home today about what a mule is. When you have a donkey, a little donkey, and a horse, you put them together, you come out with a mule. And a mule is as big as a horse. Get tickled right here. You're laughing at me, making me laugh. A donkey's little, and a horse is here, and a mule is as big as a horse, as sure-footed as a donkey, but it's stronger than both. And so John Henry was a mule. And what they used mules for in Louisiana was to pull logs from trees and pull wagons. And Uncle Sam met John Henry, and they became very, very good friends. Okay? And here's what he did. He told him all about Louisiana. One day, they came to a place called Steep Gully Hill. I want you to see that hill. See how steep it is? And none of the horses would go down the hill. They were afraid they'd fall. And Sergeant Ed said to Uncle Sam, Sam, can we go down this hill? And Sam snorted, and shook his head, shook his mane, and they went down that hill real slowly. And did they fall? No, they didn't fall. They went all the way down. And that gave Sam a new name. Sure-footed Sam. He was the most sure-footed horse in the whole United States 1st Cavalry. But Uncle Sam, Sergeant Ed liked picking at him. He told him, said, you know, Sam, there's a machine they've made that's going to make you no longer used. It's called the Army tank. And Sam said, there's no Army tank going to take my place. And one day, he saw it coming. Look at it. It was clanking, it was loud, smoke was coming out of it, a man was on the inside of it, and Sam looked at the Army tank and all the other horses, they ran.
Do you know what I think? I think cowboys do.
You think a cowboy's driving the tank? Who knows? Anyway, all the other horses ran when they saw the tank, but Uncle Sam, he didn't run because he'd been taught that cavalry horses don't run from anything. You know what he said? He said, there's no way an Army tank can go down Steep Gully Hill, because it would flip over. That's the truth. So Uncle Sam wasn't scared, but look what happened next. This is my favorite page out of the book. Uncle Sam heard about this little small square car they were making. They called it a Peep. That was the first name of the Jeep. It was called a Peep. And he heard about this little car that could go up and down the steepest hills, even Steep Gully Hill, and he dreamed about it. Now Jade, it was her idea to do that. Tell how you came up with that idea, Jade.
So since the comparison between the Jeep and the horses, I was trying to envision how Sam would actually see the Jeep.
Whoa.
The horses, and they would have to use their feet. And so I just drove the Jeep with actual horse feet to make it more literal.
Sam thought, well, if there's a car that can go up and down Steep Gully Hill, it's got to have legs like a horse. But the next day he really saw one. He saw it didn't have horse legs. What did it have?
Wheels.
It had wheels on it. But you know what it did? It scratched right on up that steep hill just as good as a horse could. And all of a sudden, look, here's Sam and John Henry the mule. Sam said to John Henry, he said, you know what? There's more than one kind of horsepower. Jay, tell them about your picture of the airplane right there.
Well, Light in the Clouds, it's a change. This is kind of like Sam realizes it's a turning point without the horses, because they're going to switch over to Jeeps now.
He realizes that all of a sudden they're not going to need horses anymore. They've got a Jeep that's going to take its place. And it's the truth, let me tell you adults. In 1941 was the first use of the Jeep. And it was here in Louisiana. They tried it out, and they found out even on our bad roads that Jeep could do well. Let's look at the next one. One day, boy, people your age really like this part of the story. One day, Sam and John Henry were down by a river, and the river was full of water. It had been raining, and a soldier had fallen in and hit his head on a log, and he was drowning. And no one knew what to do. And Sergeant Ed jumped on Sam. They swam out in the water, and they rescued that soldier. What's Sam doing right there? He's helping him out of the water. And this made Uncle Sam very, very famous. And look, they gave him some extra hay, and they gave him a new name, Hero Horse Sam. Now, then he met his girlfriend. Look at the next page. Now, you boys are going to really like this. Was it the page after that? Okay, I'm going to back up a little right here. This is one of my favorite pages. One day, Sam and Sergeant Ed led thousands of soldiers on horses across the Sabine River, and they sneaked up on some trucks and they captured them. And this is all of them swimming across the water right there. Now, the next day is when he met that girl horse. Do you remember what her name is? Y'all that have read this book before?
Bonnie.
Bonnie, that's good. See, I remember they remember that. He met this pretty white horse with white flowing mane. Her name was Bonnie. And look at his eyes. His little eyes got big. In fact, John Henry said, Sam, you're bug-eyed in love. And so they met and they fell in love. But then something bad happened. Sydney, listen to this. What happened is these stories started being told, some bad stories, about they weren't going to use horses anymore. Here's what they said. We don't need horses. We got army tanks and jeeps, and we're going to get rid of the horses. And Sam heard this story, and he thought, oh no, what are they going to do with me? And look what he heard next. Sam and Bonnie were talking right here, and they heard about a place called the soap factory. Now, the soap factory is a place that when horses go there, they never come back. And I'm not going to tell you about it, but it's a bad place that horses didn't want to go.
They get made into soap.
They get made into soap. Well, he's giving away. And I don't want my horse going to a place like that. Well, anyway, they talked. Here's what Sam told Bonnie. He said, no, Bonnie, wherever you go, I'm going with you. I'll be right there for you. Well, that night, here's the best part of the story. Sergeant Ed came out, and Sergeant Ed was a tough soldier, but you know what he was doing? He was crying. And he put his head on Sam. He said, Sam, you don't understand it, but you're the best horse I've ever had, and I'm going to let you go. And he unhooked his collar, and he hit him on the back and said, get out of here. Sam just stood there. He wouldn't go. He hit him again and said, get out of here, escape. Well, he wouldn't go. And finally, Sam, see, he couldn't talk to Sergeant Ed, but he nodded his head towards Bonnie and John Henry and his other friends. And Sergeant Ed said, well, if I'm going to get in trouble for letting you go, I'm going to let your friends go. He went out there and unclipped all the horses. And he said, y'all get out of here. And those horses ran off in the woods, but they stopped. When they got out here, they stopped and looked back, and Sergeant Ed, it's the last time they ever saw him, he took his army hat off and waved it and said, y'all go live in the woods and stay free. And stay free. And so they ran off into the woods. And look, those horses, Uncle Sam and Bonnie and John Henry and their grandchildren, look, they're still in the woods. They're still out in the woods of Louisiana near Fort Polk. There's about 200 of them that roam all around, and they are the grandchildren of Uncle Sam and Bonnie. Now show them that last page, Jay. Tell them about that page there.
So have any of you seen Star Wars? It just says, may the horse be with you.
The kids don't understand, but adults sure do. And that gives me a chance to say this. The theme of this book is children are going to enjoy the book nearly as much as adults do. And so it's been good to tell you that. I want Julian Quebedeaux to come on out here, our graphic designer. Come on, Julian. You got to come get the picture. Julian and Jade and I worked on this, and today we're in Hastings Bookstore. And this book was written in the cafe over there. Jade and I met for a period of 1.5 years. Probably every 2 or 3 weeks working on this, and then Julian did the computer work on this book, and we're proud of this book. Thank y'all for letting us tell you about it. Okay? And the grandchildren, y'all get a pretty good grade. Y'all did really good. Thank
you. Yeah, the train.
You got a C+. You got to take a bit.